We ran it through a worm and that's what it came out looking like. You don't need to feed them every day. You don't need to water them every day. They never need a bath or a walk. Worms in a worm bin can be managed as actively or as passively as you want. I frequently have bins that I ignore for 6 or 8 or 10 weeks. The worms do fine. At the heart of it, they're bugs, and bugs are hard to kill. I've never added worms to these bins. So the original 10,000 worms grew to 25 to 30,000 worms. They repopulate themselves and we just move them back and forth and back and forth. They're not burrowing worms, so they won't go into the dirt. They stay there, fat and happy. And so we just move them back and forth. Garbage, food waste predominantly, put into a landfill produces methane gas, which is one of the most damaging greenhouse gases that there are. Food waste fed to a worm or an insect produces no greenhouse gases at all. Chemical fertilizers that you put in will pass your plant's roots on their way to pollute the water table. You'll only get 10 or 15% of that chemical to actually stick to the roots as they're heading on the way down. The microbial activity that you get from a worm casting operates at the root level where the roots need it to convert what's in the soil into what the plants need. The very best casting you can possibly make is the one that you make yourself in your own bin. If you take your plants and you compost your plants, it will have the nutrients that your plants need to grow back. It'll just take and recycle, perfect circle that stuff. Worms are absolutely the lazy man's way to compost. We stick the food in there and we put a little bit of water in and we leave them alone and the worms do all the rest of the work. So we don't have to do anything at all. We don't have to actively manage them. Put stuff in there, the worms eat it, the end result is fertilizer. What you're seeing out here, there's no herbicides, no pesticides, no chemical fertilizer of any kind. This is just our compost and 5% castings. That's all you need. And by getting the microbial balance in the soil right, stuff grows. The cities are, for the most part, woefully inept at recycling material. If you want to make sure that the material that is a byproduct of your daily life gets recycled, you should have a worm composting operation. You can absolutely do a worm composting bin in a tiny apartment or in a gigantic house. You just keep a little container or someplace on your counter, put your food scraps in there. Once a week, about 1/3 of your bin, cover it with about 1 inch of food waste. We're going to feed worms greens and browns. Green is anything that you liked, anything that you ate, worms will eat. The more you like it, the more they like it. Peaches, plums, avocados, the fatter, the more sweet it is, the more they like it. White rice, brown rice, any cooked pasta, grains, they absolutely adore. I understand that any waste that I produce, I want to put in that worm bin. And so I think about what I'm buying to make sure that the things that I'm buying can go into that worm bin. Browns are anything that was a tree. So the easiest brown for me in my house is Amazon boxes. If you'll cut them up into strips and you'll put them in a 5-gallon bucket of water overnight, the next day you're watching Judge Judy, they tear up super fast. The worms don't care about the size or the shape. Big pieces, little pieces, it doesn't matter. You'll take your garbage that you would ordinarily just be throwing away and all those Amazon boxes and leaves and other junk mail that gets shredded up and put in there. The worms will consume it and produce awesome fertilizer. So if you want your backyard garden or your fruit trees to be a success, then you get a worm bin. I put all of my waste from my salads in here and the worms eat it. I have never added worms. I have never fertilized any of these things, and it has given us fruit continuously. And by the time it gets to where it's really broken down, it's going to look like potting soil. Vermicomposting is the direct way to prevent food from going into the landfill and instead converting it into something that can be useful in your garden. Any garden, any lawn, it has value. When you decide you like raising worms, and we hope you do, and you start passing them out to all your friends, and we hope you do, and then your friend reads that thing on the internet that says you can get rich breeding worms, send them down here and we'll show them how hard it is. Just take a step. There are 100 things that people can do, and just pick one and do it. It'll get you thinking about zero waste, which we think is important. It'll help you reduce the amount of things that you throw away. It'll help you grow your vegetables and fruits and lawns. There's really no downside to having worms in your house.